This lesson is about memorizing exact values. Let's jump down to the interactive panel, go across to memorizing exact values and press play. In the last lesson, we filled in this table of common angles and the results of sine, cos and tan. This table helps us quickly solve common angles without needing to use a calculator or have rounding errors. And because these angles are so common, it's super useful to memorize the table so that you don't always have to spend time looking it up. Also, in most exams, you won't have a copy of the table, so you'll need to have it memorized. So here's an easy way to remember how to make the table. First, we're going to count from 0 to 3 in the sign boxes. Type 0 into this first box and press enter. Okay, 0, enter. Nice, now type in 1 into the next box. And 2 in the next. Now 3. Now for this last one, we'll go back to 1. Type in 1. Nice, now we're going to square root the 3 middle values, starting with this one. Change it to square root of 1. Okay, so for the square roots, we can't really put the existing thing into it, so we'll just have to go square root of 1. And then backspace that one. Although for this first one, the square root of 1 is just 1. So it helps to remember the system as square root the 3 middle ones, but we should actually just leave this first one as 1. So let's just put this one back to 1. Now this one will actually leave as a square root, which is square root of 2. So I'm going to backspace that and then write square root of 2. And this one, square root of 3. Awesome. Now we're just going to divide everything by 2. So make this first one 1 over 2. And it says everything, it means the middle 3 values. So 1 over 2. Now make this one square root of 2 over 2. Remember, we have to go outside the square root, so press the right arrow key. Otherwise we're going to do this. So we want to make sure we're outside of it and then go over 2. And this one, root 3 over 2. Nice, that's sine done. Now we're going to do the exact same thing for cos, but going in the other direction. So start with 0 over here this time, 0. Now we're going to count up to 3 going to the left, so 1. And now back to 1. Nice. Now we square root the middle 3 values, starting with this one. Okay, so square root of 3. Backspace that, square root of 2. But with this third one, remember the square root of 1 is just 1. So we'll just leave it as it is. Now we divide the middle 3 values by 2. Alright. Okay. So that's sine and cos done. To recap, just count from 0 to 3, then put a 1 at the end. Then square root the middle 3 numbers and then divide them by 2. And for cos, we do the exact same, but from right to left. Okay, now for tan. The great thing about tan is we don't really need to memorize anything new. Remember the formula tan theta equals O over A? Look in the input box below. So yeah, tan theta is O over A, okay? And in the unit circle, the hypotenuse is 1. So the formulas for sine and cos are just, look at the input box below. We have sine theta equals O. And then there's supposed to be a gap here, just ignore that. Sine theta equals O and cos theta equals A. True, because it's supposed to be over H, but because the hypotenuse is 1, it just cancels out. Same over here. So in the tan formula, instead of O and A, we can replace them with sine theta and cos theta. So let's do it. Because sine theta equals O, replace O with sine theta. So O over here, that's the same as just sine theta. And because cos theta equals A, we can replace A with cos theta. Okay, cos theta. Nice. This is actually a very helpful formula to remember for tan theta in general. And it's based on SOHCAHTOA, something we're already familiar with. This works for not just the unit circle, by the way. I won't go into exactly how, but the hypotenuse will cancel anyway. And so it doesn't matter that the hypotenuse is not 1. In situations that aren't the unit circle, the hypotenuse will still cancel out. And so you'll still just end up with sine theta and cos theta being equal to tan theta. Okay, so now let's use it to fill in the table for tan. We'll start with an angle of 0, so replace the thetas in the input box with zeros. Alright, place this one with 0, place this one with 0, replace this one with 0. Nice, now we can just use the values in the table to work out sine 0 and cos 0. First, replace sine 0 with the value we found earlier. Okay, so sine 0 was just 0, so I'll get rid of this sine 0, replace it with 0. Awesome, and now replace cos 0 with the value we found earlier, which is just 1. So replace cos 0 with 1, and 0 divided by 1 is just 0, so replace the 0 divided by 1 with just 0. Okay, quick note again, people get confused here, which is fair enough. 0 over 1, not a problem at all. It's when we have something divided by 0. So 1 divided by 0, that's going to cause a problem because you can't divide something into 0. Like you can't divide a pizza into 0 pieces. You can divide a pizza into 8 pieces, but trying to divide a pizza into 0 pieces, that just doesn't really make any sense. So this one's fine, it's just equals 0. Awesome, so tan 0 equals 0, add it to the table. So for all the tan values, we just need to divide the sine by the cos. So all of these, just dividing them by each other. So this one will be that over that, this will be that over that, and so on. So let's do tan 30 now. Because the values for sine 30 and cos 30 are fractions, let's change the fraction in our formula to divided by to make it less confusing. If you accidentally backspace the division symbol here, just press this button to insert it again. So we don't have a shortcut to put the divide symbol in because we don't use it most of the time. So just for this one, you can press this and it will insert a division symbol if we accidentally delete this one. All right, let's press next. Okay, now replace sine 30 with the value from the table. Well, sine 30 was 1 over 2. Here the cursor gets a little bit inaccurate. Like it looks like it's here right now, like between the 3 and the 0. It's actually not. It's actually just before there. So just do your best to try and navigate and delete the things. I think it's because there's too much in this window here. So just be careful. If you do stuff it up, you can just press the reset button. It'll reset it to what it was at the start. So I think this will be right. And also this is another reason why we add the divide thing in here, because it can be easy to accidentally backspace the divide, like there. And so we can just press that to get it back. So I'll just do that. There we go. Okay, so we're replacing sine 30 with 1 over 2. Nice. And now replace cos 30. And cos 30 is square root of 3 on 2. So we'll go over here, backspace, square root of 3 over 2. Awesome. Now to sort out these fractions, remember that when we're dividing two fractions, we can use KCF, keep, change, flip. We keep the first fraction as it is, so this 1 over 2 will stay as 1 over 2. We change the divide to a times, so divide will become times. And we flip the second fraction. So root 3 on 2 will become 2 on root 3. So first, backspace the divide and replace it with the times. Remember, you can press Shift and 8 to make a times. So we'll navigate over to here, backspace the divide, and Shift 8 to make the times symbol. If you're confused on what it wants for this part, you can go to the answer here. It'll tell you, okay, we want to make it look like this. And again, we can reset it to what it was if we accidentally backspace the wrong thing, because yeah, the cursor's a little bit weird for this section. But yeah, let's submit. Now flip the second fraction. Instead of root 3 on 2, it becomes 2 on root 3, okay? So root 3 is 2, and then 2 becomes root 3. Now to times the two fractions, we just times the top by the top and the bottom by the bottom. So 1 times 2, 2 times root 3. But because there's a 2 on the top and the bottom, the 2's will both cancel. So if we did that, eventually we'd have a 2 on the top and on the bottom as well. So they're just going to cancel each other out anyway, so we may as well just cancel it now. And we'll just end up with 1 on root 3. And ignore the little bracket there, that's a little typo. But yeah, we end up, the 2's go away, we just get 1 on root 3. Now notice how all these middle values are in a fraction over 2. So 1 over 2, root 3 on 2, root 2 on 2, root 2 on 2, root 3 on 2, 1 on 3, they all have 2's. When we divide each of these by each other, the 2's will cancel out there as well. So really, we can just focus on the numerators. So for tan 30, instead of all that working out we just did with the fractions, we can just get the 1 from the sine 30 right there, and the root 3 from the cos 30, which is there, and make our 1 on root 3 to get the same result, seeing as we know the 2's will cancel out anyway. We'll apply that to the next 2 angles as well, but let's add this 1 on root 3 to the table first. Okay, so 1 over square root of 3, enter. Okay, so for tan 45, we're just going to divide the values we got for sine 45 and cos 45, but seeing as the 2's on the denominator will cancel anyway, we can just ignore them. So we'll just end up with root 2 on 2. Type it into our input box first, okay? So if we did divide the whole fraction by the whole fraction, the 2's will go away, so we may as well just do the numerator divided by the numerator. So square root of 2 over square root of 2. And now we can see that we have something dividing by itself, which is always 1. Like 5 divided by 5 is 1, 100 divided by 100 is 1. So root 2 on root 2 is also just 1. So let's just replace all of this with 1. Now add it to the table. Okay, 1. Nice, let's repeat that for tan 60. Type in the square root of 3 from sine 60 and put it over the 1 from the cos 60, which is square root of 3 over 1. Okay, square root of 3, that comes from here, and the 1 comes from there, so over 1. And dividing by 1 doesn't do anything, so just cancel it out and we'll be left with square root of 3. Okay, just like that. Nice, now just add it to the table. Square root of 3. Last one, tan 90. We're going to divide the 1 from sine 90 by the 0 from cos 90. Okay, 1 divided by 0. But remember, dividing by 0 in maths is undefined. So we can just put a capital U in the table for undefined. Remember how we said you can divide a pizza into 8 pieces, but you can't divide a pizza into 0 pieces. That doesn't make any sense. So just like that situation, it's also undefined in maths. Nice, that's everything. Try making the table yourself now by writing it down in a book, following these steps. Press next when you're ready to start, then press next once you've finished each step. Okay, so get a book out and then press next and start with the angle labels. So across the top of the table, first leave a blank space, so there, and then write the angles 0, 30, 45, 60, and 90, and then press next once you've done that. So I'm going to do it here, we'll leave a blank space here, and then we'll go 0, 30, 45, 60, and then 90. And then press next. Now write sine, cos, and tan on each line along the left side of the table. So sine, cos, tan, okay. So we'll put here sine, and then cos, and then tan. Now write sine, cos, and tan on each line along the left side of the table. No, we just did that. I think that's a small mistake there, just ignore that. Now for the sine values, count from 0 to 3. So write 0, then 1, 2, and 3 going across. And then for sine 90, write 1. Okay, so 0, 1, 2, 3, and then go back to 1. Now square root the middle 3 values, the 30, 45, and 60 columns. But remember the square root of 1 is just 1, so we can just leave it as 1. Okay, so for these 3 here, oops, missed it. There we go. We're going to square root them all. but square root of 1 is just 1, so we'll leave that one. And then square root of 2, and then square root of 3. Now divide the 3 middle values by 2 using a fraction. So over 2 over 2 over 2. Great job. Now just copy the sine values into the cos values, but going in the opposite direction. So cos starts with 1, then 3, 2, 1, 0. So down here, we're going to do the same thing, but instead of starting with 0, we're going to start with 1. So 1, and then we'll go 3, 2, 1, 0. And we're basically just copying it. So we're going to do root 3, root 2, root 1, which is just 1. And then over 2, over 2, over 2. Awesome. Now fill in the tan values by doing each sine value divided by each cos value. Remember, for the middle 3 values, the denominator, small typo there, my bad, the denominator of 2 will cancel anyway, so you can ignore it. Use the hints here if you get stuck. So it'll walk you through each one of these if you get stuck on this part, but we should be okay because I'm a genius. So 0 divided by 1, that is just 0. And then here, we ignore the 2's there, and we just do 1 over root 3. So 1 over root 3. And then here, ignore the 2's, we're going to have root 2 over root 2, but anything divided by itself is just 1. So really this one is just 1. And then here we have root 3 over 1, root 3 over 1. But if you divide by 1, nothing happens, so just get rid of the divided by 1. And then here we have 1 over 0. And 1 over 0. Remember, we can't divide by 0 because it doesn't make any sense. So instead of that, we're just going to put a big capital U for undefined. Great job. Check your table against the table we made earlier. So here, okay, and we got 0, half, root 2 and 2, root 3 and 2, 1. We have that here, yep, 0, half, root 2 and 2, root 3 and 2, back to 1. And then here it goes the opposite direction, so it goes that way instead. Yep, we've got that. And then 0, 1 on root 3, 1, root 3, u. 0, 1 on root 3, 1, root 3, u. Yep, nice. Okay, make any corrections you need to. We don't have any corrections because I'm a genius. And then cover up the table and try to make it one more time. Try to follow the steps from memory without looking. All right, I just did that, and so I won't do it again on the video, but you should do it yourself to get the practice. I have written it out at least 100 times or more, so I don't need the practice. But you should practice it. Okay, so great job. Check your table against the table we made earlier. Make any corrections you need to, then cover up the table and try to make it one more time, trying to follow the steps from memory without looking. You should practice following the steps to make the table from memory at least a few more times before your exam, especially if you notice it's not sticking. A habit that used to help me was I would recreate the table from memory whenever I needed it in a question, rather than just writing it once in my book and going back to check it when I needed it. This is when I'm studying, not in an exam, okay? In an exam, just write it once, obviously. So for example, if you do 10 questions in a row, you don't need to remake the table for every question. But if you need it for a question and it's been a day or more since you last wrote the table from memory, I would try to just do it from memory. That way you get free practice. It only takes 30 seconds once you get used to it, and then by the time you get to the exam, it'll be second nature to you and it's basically free marks. Anyways, that's the end of the lesson. In the next one, we'll put the table to use to get more accurate answers for side lengths and also to let us do something new. So there's a practice question down here. It's just writing out the table. So if you already did it while you're watching along, or you did it in part of the interactive lesson, don't have to do it again. I just wanted to put it there just so that this one has a practice question to it. And just in case people kind of clicked through that revision section. Yeah, that's it. So
if you've already done the practice, like if you've already written it out from memory as part of the lesson, feel free to just skip the line, go to the top, tick off the lesson, and I'll see you in the next one.